Use generative AI to multiply talent management's impact. Today, Andrew Leong-Fern, founder and CEO of Strategy.ai, is here to guide you through their demo. So I am going to pass it over to Andrew to take it away and start off demo day for us today.
Thanks, Alexandria. Appreciate it. And I'm just going to share my screen here. Okay, are you able to see my screen there? Okay, this is, so again, I'm Andrew Leong-Fern. I'm the founder of Strategy.ai, and I appreciate your time today. I also actually have Deb Ryan, who leads our customer success effort. And so if you have any specific questions that you want answered, she can help you with it via chat. Okay, so for today's session, basically, I'm going to give you a flavor for what AI can do and how it's different. Some of you may have some experience with, for example, things like ChatGPT. Some of you may not, but I'll get you right into it very quickly. I'm going to help you understand how you can actually take AI and put it into the actual workflow of where your teammates work. And then finally, I want to give you a way to think differently about the L&D process, how you develop programs, how you deploy them. Hopefully, I think you'll find it pretty interesting and as well challenging. Okay, with that, I'll go on to the next slide here. So for the last 20 years, I've been involved in talent management and L&D in a wide variety of areas, mostly as a consultant, helping collaborate with internal teams to design, to build, to deploy, to measure, to do maintenance. So you're not talking to somebody, or I'm not here to necessarily talk from experiences I don't have. These are all really from things and life experiences that I've had in sort of fighting alongside with people internally. So I wanted to give you that sense anyways. Let me go right into our application. Again, we're called Strategy.ai. And what I've done for this demo is I basically just created a workspace. This may look a little busy. You don't necessarily need to pay all that much attention to it. But what I've essentially done is I've uploaded a file in two parts, because I want to give you a flavor for how easy it is to actually create an engaging AI experience. What I've done is I've basically taken an OSHA document. It's their training standards. It contains 250 pages of this type of content. Okay, so it's basically, I broke it up into two files. I've uploaded it. And now what I'm going to do is take you into the actual chat experience. So again, some of you may not have had an experience with AI, but essentially what AI does is any information you upload to our environment, which is in our environment, when you chat against something, you're chatting against specific files that you've uploaded. You're not chatting against the internet. You're not chatting against somebody else's information. The information in our platform is protected. It's private. It's secure. When you upload something, only you have access to it. And so when you're chatting here, it's only chatting against that one file that basically I've uploaded. So for example, again, for folks who may not have seen AI work before, basically I just pose a question, what is OSHA? And it generates an answer. You can be more specific. Tell me 3 things about OSHA. And so it basically thinks about it, it'll formulate, it'll scan all of the data, it'll basically take a look at what's most relevant, and it'll then formulate the answer. And so that's what you're seeing here. Now, many times people who had early use of, for example, ChatGPT will often wonder, like, where does this answer come from? And the answer for us is what we've done is we built in this little booklet here. When you open it, what you'll see on the right-hand side is an excerpt from the file or files that were used to generate this answer. So right here, there's the excerpt. When I scroll down, you'll actually see the file that it came from. And if I click on this, you can actually download it to your desktop. What we want to do is build confidence in these answers, because many times people will be concerned about where does this come from. So what we do is we actually provide you with the excerpts and then the originating files. And if there's more files or more excerpts, we basically just list them. They're listed in relative importance. So the sources at the top are basically the most important in terms of what was used to generate this response. The other thing that we can do is we won't spend the time on it, but basically you could also click on comment on source, because sometimes you'll see a piece of information, you're like, oh, that might be updated data. Is that really the correct data? You just click on this, it'll basically open up a new window, and you can actually leave a comment for the person who owns this file. They will get notified, and then they'll basically follow through to make sure that any question that you have about the source can be addressed. Because ultimately, one of the things that we try to do is we think about, I'm sure you've heard of this, the one source of truth, that there are many different pockets within the organization of who has what data. And so our hope is that because generative AI uses the data that's uploaded to it, one thing we want to do is help facilitate the consolidation to that one source of truth. And really, that's kind of what this comment on source and giving people visibility and transparency into those sources. This is what it provides. Okay, so one of the things that we've also done is we've actually added this on the left-hand side. We've added this area called Content Expert POV. So I've already preceded it, and I basically said, you're an expert in occupational health and safety standards. So what this does is it allows us, or allows the user to change who they may want to hear from. So for example, when you upload your documents, you may sit there and say, as a user, I may say, well, I work in the supply chain division, but I really don't hear much of what goes on in marketing. I want the point of view when they answer a question, I want it to come from the marketing team, or I want it to come from this business unit or from that geographic team. So sometimes what you want to do is you basically want to use this content expert POV. So since this is an expert in health and safety, I'll basically just do this next question. I'm new to the manufacturing environment. What are 3 things that I should know of to be safe? So it's going to think about it. It's going to go, again, scan all the data, basically come back and provide an answer. Now what I'm going to do is, let's say that I'm an employee and I work in manufacturing, but I'm really concerned about fire hazards. So I'm going to adjust this content expert POV in the bottom left. I'm just going to say, specifically in regards to fire hazards. Okay, then I'm basically going to ask the exact same question. You'll be able to see how the answer is adjusted based on the content expert POV change. Okay. So again, it'll adjust it based on whatever you put in for who's giving you the answer, and you want to give that content expert some additional perspective, you can do that. The other thing that we've done is we've actually added here what's called my POV. So let's say that I work in manufacturing, and actually I have a problem. You can put anything in here that you want. You could say, but I'll say I have problems with my vision, right? And so I'll ask the exact same question, and AI will typically adjust the answer to reflect any new information that you provided. Okay. One of the other things that you can also do is you can actually, if you think about building L&D programs and making it widely available, one of the more challenging things for folks who deal with or need to serve employees in different geographies and in different languages, that you can deploy this tool in any language. People can ask in their language. And what it'll do is it'll generate a response. So they can actually ask it in their language. And you can actually also change your point of view, and you can say, oh, I speak Chinese. And it'll deploy it also to you in Chinese. Again, this is all of your own internal content. So if you have existing programs, imagine taking all of your existing programs, take a safety program or an onboarding program or whatever program you may have, uploading the existing content and being able to make it very easily accessible to people in other languages. Again, you can check the quality of the response by just asking the exact same question in English and then looking at the sources and validating and confirming, in fact, that these are the correct answers. So again, even though the content is in English, it'll still generate the response in Chinese here. Likewise, if you actually had a bunch of content, so for example, we work with lots of different global companies and they'll have content coming from different parts of the world, you can mix it all in to the same workspace, upload it. So Chinese, Japanese, Spanish, etc. You can all upload it. But when I ask questions, it'll respond in the language that I want it to. Okay. One of the other things that we've done is, as a developer of programs, one of the things you often are curious about, or at least I'm often curious about, is what is the quality of the conversation that people are having about a particular content? What is it that they're curious about? And so we actually have this tool over here we call it questions and sentiment, where you can actually take a look at the specific content, the specific questions or statements that people have. So over time, you're able to get a sense of what is it that people are curious about. And what that does is it helps you come back over here and you can actually assess. I'll show you a different workspace where we have more files loaded. This is, for example, for Tesla. It's about Tesla's business and its business plan. Well, you'll see here there are a number of different files. And we basically have sorted it based on which file has been used to generate the most answers. And when you're developing content, for me, one of the things that I value most is not only knowing what is of most value to people, but also what documents are not being used at all. Because if I'm constantly updating reports or information, what is it that's not being helpful? Knowing the questions will help me identify, are there gaps in the content that I've provided? And then also what this file usage lets me see is what is in fact being used and being super responsive and helpful. Here again, I won't get into this, but basically this comments column, this little red dot basically indicates when somebody's left a comment that's of value that they want a response to using that comment on source button, it flags it for me here. So I know what to do. Okay. So again, I encourage you, if you get a chance, go ahead and do a demo. All you need to do is kind of create a free trial, come up here, drag and drop a file. It can be any file. I recommend you taking things like, that are, you're not going to be concerned about from a security point of view. So you can take existing content off your own public website, drop and paste it in here, just ask a bunch of questions. Or you can take public documents like what I've done with you, which is OSHA, throw it in here and just play around with it, get a sense of how AI actually responds. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to jump into how you can actually take this content and you can actually put it into where people normally work. Okay, so if you actually just had this bookmark link right here, we've got clients that are putting it into, for example, Workday. You can put in SharePoint, you can put in Salesforce, you can put in a number of different places where it's just a link, you can put it in your LMS. So when people have questions, they can go there. I'll just show you an example as it relates to what we call a widget that's embedded in a SharePoint site. So this is just a mocked-up SharePoint site. So again, this is the same OSHA interface here. So, but basically the idea is rather than requiring an employee to sort of like sign up for training, go through the training, 3 weeks after the training, think, oh, where is it that I learned this? Where can I put my fingers on that information? What we do here is we load all that content and then basically make the information available when and where they work. So again, it may be in an existing SharePoint site or Salesforce or Workday, wherever they normally traffic, where they normally go to find answers. We typically want to put this type of interface. We call this, again, the widget. We have something else called an AI chatbot. It's going to go, I'll give you an example of where it's going to go. This one is with a client that's going to go live this week. So this is for the Andersons. They basically sell direct to consumer. They have millions of folks who come here to shop for fertilizers. We have a chatbot that's actually going live this week. And so it's just this little thing here at the bottom right. And I can ask it a question. And again, if you can imagine an employee being able to access a chatbot where they normally work already or on their mobile phone, they'll be able to basically find the answers and then go right back to work. So again, here in this case, I asked, what is Barricade? It's one of the fertilizers they sell. It gives a spiel. It gives you a link to a product page. It gives you the spreader setting. So in this context, the e-commerce team at the Andersons, what we're trying to do is accelerate the sort of the shop to buy process, the customer journey, take the friction out of it. But again, so as you think about, helping people find the right answers, especially with virtual, I'm sure many of you have come across a situation where people are just tired of e-learning. They're just tired of Zoom meetings. They're tired of so many things. And what this does is it kind of puts the power back in their own hands where they can ask the question, they can customize the experience, they can define their own point of view and get more quickly to the answers that they're looking for. Okay. Okay, so let me jump back to the presentation here and just get you to sorry, let me get back to this last point, which is explore how AI can transform the L&D process, potentially freeing up a lot of your time and or money. So again, we've all had different experiences, but at a high level, this is a typical L&D process, right? You do some needs assessment, you've got program design, you spend a lot of time developing that program, you prepare to implement, right? You do logistics, you train instructors, you soften the ground where this is getting deployed to, you communicate to the leadership. And then at some point, you're going to do evaluation and maintenance. Most of the programs that I see are, typically several weeks or if not several months, right? And sometimes, I don't know if you've all had the experience, but sometimes by the time you get to this end point, so many variables have changed that it's challenging. It's challenging to maintain a program when things are moving so quickly in the business. And so what AI does differently, and I'll just give you a version of this, then we'll talk through it, but it allows you to shorten your needs assessment because originally when you do, at least for us, when we do needs assessment, you want to get a full picture of all the needs and how everything connects. When you use AI, you still do that, but you do it in more of an agile approach, which is instead of trying to get a complete holistic picture of everything, what we do is we identify the needs and then boom, we instantly address those needs. We upload content that sufficiently addresses those needs. And as needs become apparent to us, we upload the data so that people can find the right answers. And that's really where this content collection comes in. Content collection is really where you're already doing this, but it's a little bit different because now what you're trying to do is actually you're trying to coach, for example, subject matter experts, where in the past you might have to spend a lot of time interviewing them or scraping other pieces of data. Here, what you do is you just talk to them, take their transcripts from any meetings they've had, take any presentations they've had, take any documents they've read, any emails they've written about whatever topic it is that you're trying to develop content for, and you upload all of that into AI. All of that rich information is valuable to AI, and you don't have to spend any time formatting the data because AI basically is just going to sit there and read the text and it's going to formulate the answer. So I know a lot of people will spend a lot of time formatting. Oh, I need a virtual version. I need an e-learning module. I need this for a quick sort of bite-sized insight for a stand-up meeting. I need this, that. All that can be folded into AI. So a lot of it is about just making sure that you've got the right content. And then again, because you're going to look at the questions that are inbound and you're going to look at the files that are used, you're going to be able to identify the gaps and the needs more clearly. And as well, you can, of course, through piloting, you're going to be able to identify the gaps. And the piloting process, normally a piloting process of a traditional program could take days, oftentimes weeks. Here, piloting, what I recommend is just scheduling a 1-hour meeting with 10 people, having them sit down, ask a whole bunch of questions, and have them do an evaluation. And you'll see, you can actually after the meeting, you can go look at the quality of the questions that they're asking and the quality of the answers that they're getting to determine whether or not you need additional content or different types of content. The time to prepare and implement is really spent more about on the technical side. It's actually spent with, making sure that you've got it embedded where you want it. Is it in your LMS, where you want it in your LMS? Is it embedded in Workday or somewhere else? And then evaluation and maintenance. This is where, if you're a gardener, you might relate to it more, but basically it's more where you're just continuously looking at your garden, you're continuously, adding things, moving a shrub, adding fertilizer. What you want to be doing is constantly be aware of what your customers are. So if you're building a program for Salesforce education about a new product launch that's happening, and as that product information starts to come to you, you'll be updating basically the information in AI. Again, whereas before it would throw a whole wrench into things when you're developing content in different medias. Here, all you need to do is really just kind of take a look at what you've already got, throw out the old, put in the new, and it's pretty much instantaneous. You'll have access to it. So where does the savings come from? What I'm suggesting is that, and once you get comfortable doing this, you can save upwards of 75% of your time and resources. And this is where it comes from. For us, a lot of time sometimes is spent getting access to subject matter experts, and really having them define what the needs are and everything else. But sometimes there are simple programs. So for example, they may not be your top 3 programs that you're trying to build, but you have a whole list of other things and other needs that people have asked you for, and you're not able to get to them. I'll give you an example. One of our piloting customers wanted to understand, like, can this help us educate people about Coupa? So the Coupa procurement payment system, if you're familiar with it, if your company uses it. And in literally 4 hours, we basically took all the content they had for Coupa, uploaded it, and it was able to answer 90% of their questions. So instead of developing a long, robust program where you probably wouldn't even have time to allocate to it, here you can literally spend an afternoon, upload the right information, give it to the customer and let them play with it, and then you can calibrate the content based on that. Again, we talked a little bit about real-time needs assessment, that you're still doing needs assessment, but you're not trying to get this holistic view and you're spending all this time making sure you cover everything immediately. What you do is you assess the most critical parts of what needs to be addressed, and you address that information right instantaneously. And you allow them to basically then give you more insights about what is needed. And then you just continue to add and upload content to address that. Again, simplified program design, again, obviously AI and what we've got in terms of platform won't replace all programs. It's not intended to. There are definitely times when you need leader-led, when a team sort of presentation needs to be done, or e-learning is able to hit a certain topic more effectively. But certainly when you come to something like this, and my experience is that when traditional L&D folks are presented with this, it grinds against your nature of what you think is correct. And the only thing I can suggest is to go ahead and just try it. Take an existing program or old program, content from 10 years ago, and upload it, and then give it a try and see if it doesn't convince you that, in fact, yeah, there might be a couple downfalls, but in fact, it gives you a lot more flexibility, and then gives your users, your customers, immediate access to realize the value, so that they're not waiting weeks or months for a program to be delivered, but they can actually get it in a much shorter period of time. And again, we've talked about sort of this replace the development process with content curation. So what I'll do is I will pause here, and actually maybe we will take some questions. Alexandra, if you don't mind facilitating this part, if we still have time.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, Deb is doing a great job answering some questions in there already. I see a few folks have asked about SCORM and how it works with SCORM, though. So is that something that you can help answer?
Whether the content can be SCORM compliant and the data can be transacted back. So we don't address that at this point. We don't try to tie back. What happens is that the answers that are being generated, we actually don't tie back to any tracking system that you have.
Okay.
Now,
Great.
that doesn't mean that it can't be. We would just need to connect to your LMS and basically API into your LMS in order to pass the data back. But currently, it's not something we do.
Got it. Okay, makes sense. So maybe a future opportunity feature. So another question I see is about just data security. So Deb answered about which large language model that you utilize, being OpenAI, but how do you ensure that the information is all secure? What does that look like?
Sure. So the data itself is encrypted at rest and in transit. We do use the OpenAI model. When you use their API, they've obviously committed to not using their data to train. It's unlike a consumer chat. If you use ChatGPT and the consumer side, they've told you that they will train their models based on your interactions. But when using the enterprise version, basically, that's not something that is a concern. Plus, it's also backed by Microsoft, and Microsoft uses the exact same API. And of course, their enterprise is not going to allow that to occur. So your data is safe, to the extent if you believe in Microsoft, OpenAI, and AWS.
Okay. Okay, Rebecca just asked a great question. I was about to ask how accurate the responses are. Maybe I can couple that also at tack on. Rebecca just asked, how is bias being mitigated when creating these responses?
Yep. So what's happening is that I'm going to share my screen again. See if I can get back to share screen. So bias can creep in, but unlike with your experience, folks' experience with ChatGPT, what will typically happen is that people will with ChatGPT, basically, there's kind of like an interesting situation. When you use normal AI outside of our platform, when it gives you something creative that you like, you call that creative. When you see a response that you don't like, you call that hallucination or bias. And there can still be actual bias in there. For us, what we do is we rely on the content. And so you're right. We actually encourage folks when they actually upload content, they need to be conscious of the content and the words that they use, the way that they frame things in the content they provide. But when you take a look at what's on the right-hand side, what we try to do is basically give you visibility and transparency. So you can ask any question that you want. You can try to find bias. And this is one of the reasons why we actually have, for example, comment on source, so that as people come up and across an issue that they think has bias, they would address it here. They can basically click on comment on source. It'll open it up. You can leave a comment, and it'll basically notify the file owner that they think that there's something wrong with the content. What I'm trying to also, what I'm implying is the content that you're already using for your existing programs also have bias in them. But the bias that's in our platform is bias that's coming from your existing content. It's not coming from OpenAI's large language model, preferably. It's not coming from anybody else's content. It's not coming from somebody scanning the internet and then formulating the answer. It's really just coming from your content only. And so that's why the complaints about hallucination drop significantly when using our platform. Alexandria, was there a second part to that question? Did I hit it?
Yeah, you hit it. That's a great way to address it. I'm going to jump to another question because we still have time. Ashley asked, can I have different groups of information for different projects where I'm limiting who can see and search for what information based on those?
Absolutely. So we actually have a way for you to actually add members. You can add members this way. You can, you've got a listing of folks here, but you can have different workspaces. So for example, I'm on sort of our chat level here, and I've got 4 different workspaces here. So Tesla, Chinese, OSHA, and continuous improvement. Each of these has different member settings. So this one has 8, for example. So you can basically give us whole departments, or through single sign-on, we can basically set up sort of different groupings of people and which workspaces they go to. What I should also show you is basically what we call global chat. So let's say that you're a member of 3 out of 4 of these workspaces. When I use global chat, it will actually draw answers from across these 4 workspaces and from across the company. The way that we do that is when you have, when you go to your personal profile, you're a super admin. When you first get set up in our platform, you'll be assigned what we call an IBAC level. And IBAC basically stands for Information-Based Access Controls. It's our way to make sure that you only have access to the information that you have access to. So you have a user IBAC, and then when people actually upload a file, so let me upload a file here. The person who's closest to the information is most intimate will typically select the IBAC level. So for example, IBAC 10 is information intended for the public. And as you get higher, it's more critical information, right? Level 80 is information that would cause great harm to the business and so forth. So we have a lot of controls over who can upload, who has access, what levels can be set. But ultimately, all of the files that are uploaded are given a file IBAC. So again, when you come back to global chat and you chat against something, you're able to get answers from across the company. You no longer have to go look for a specific, oh, where was that thing about how we do Kaizen in our company? Or how do we, what's that product? We're launching a new product. When's that happening? All that information basically is just going to come to you through this one chat interface. Again, and this interface can be embedded in an LMS or anywhere you want it to. But in terms of you're on our platform, this is where you would go, is global chat. So yes, you can have different groups of people in different workspaces, and you can have overlap as well. If you have content in a workspace that you don't want anybody else to have access to, you can also basically just change the security settings so that it's, for example, only members of the workspace. And therefore, other people, when they use their global chat, they will not get access to this information. Only members of this workspace will have access to it in their global chat.
And one last quick question before we wrap up, knowing that we're not getting to all of your questions. So thank you everyone for being patient. I know that the Strategy AI team will follow up with you to help answer questions. Will folks who are using the free trial, so Deb just dropped the free trial information into the chat again for everyone. Will multiple users be able to access that if you want to get feedback from other users?
Yes, they will be able to. So they can each sign up for their own free trial, or when one person signs up for a free trial, when you get into your workspace, it'll look something like this. You just click add members and you just type in their email address, and then they'll be invited to your same workspace. So you can share the same content and experiment with it together.
Awesome. Well, we are running out of time. It is now 12:31. So I want to say a huge thank you to Andrew and Deb for answering lots of questions and going through a super speedy, awesome strategy AI demo with us. Thank you so, so much.